And we're going to start by learning more about the infinitive, and we're going to talk about two different uses of the infinitive. So when we look at a sentence so far, when I ask you, why is this noun nominative? You would say, well, the noun is nominative because it is
the subject or somehow.
Yeah, it's the subject or the predicate nominative. And if I ask, why is this noun genitive, you would say it's genitive because it's showing possession. Why is this noun dative, you would say?
Because it's the direct object.
Yeah, it's the indirect object, or it's showing who it's for, and we would call that dative of reference. And if I say, why is this noun accusative, you would say?
Because you're using it or something?
Yeah, it's the direct object. It's the action is being directly done on it. There's another reason why something might be accusative.
Accompaniment? No.
Nope, that's the ablative. Objects of some prepositions, like ad, meaning to or towards, it's direct. The object of that preposition is accusative. And we've learned several uses of the ablative. What's one use of the ablative?
Accompaniment?
Accompaniment, and does that use a preposition?
Yes.
Yes, it uses the preposition
yeah.
to. What's another use of the ablative? Yes?
Ablative of means.
Ablative of means, does that use a preposition?
No.
No? And what does ablative of means mean?
Like what you're using to do something.
Excellent, what you're using to do something.
Like fighting with the sword.
Fighting with a sword, that's the best example. And one other type of ablative.
What did we already say?
We said accompaniment and means. Manner. Ablative of manner. Like he does it with great enthusiasm.
Oh, it's like it's a feeling and how yeah.
Yep. And then also there are some prepositions that just take the ablative. Their objects are in the ablative. Okay, so now we're going to talk about infinitives. And there are different kinds of infinitives as well. So at the bottom of page 37, let's take a look at it. The infinitive is an abstract verbal noun in the neuter singular. Okay, what that means is a verbal noun. That means it acts like a noun in the sentence, but it comes from a verb.
So it's like a gerund?
Boys, y'all need to behave, and otherwise I'm going to split you up and make you sit right in front where I can see you. Yes. Okay?
But not really?
But not really, right, because there are gerunds in Latin, and we'll learn about those in future years. Okay, but it does act like a noun, and if you think about it, that makes sense, because if I were to say the sentence, to love your neighbors is a good thing, the subject of that sentence is to love your neighbors. And subjects have to be nouns. So even though it comes from a verb, it is a noun. So if it's a noun in Latin, it has to have a gender. And its gender is going to be neuter. It's indeclinable, which means it doesn't change its forms depending on whether or not it's the subject or the direct object. It does not have case endings. And we know that it comes from the second principal part of the verb, and we translate it with the word to. Okay, so that's information about the infinitive. Now we're going to talk about the complementary infinitive. If you turn the page to page 38, the complementary infinitive completes the meaning of another verb. So our examples, if we look at our first example, insulam videre possum. I am able to see the island. That's a complementary infinitive because it's completing the main verb, which is I am able. So I am able what? I am able to see. So that's why it's a complementary infinitive. In the next example, laborare debemus. We ought to work. Again, it's completing the idea of the main verb. And so when the infinitive is used that way, it's called a complementary infinitive. Another use of the infinitive is the object infinitive. And if you look at our next example, we'll see in this sentence, the infinitive is the direct object of the verb. Agricola laborare aptat. The farmer wants to work. What does the farmer want? He wants to work. So it's the direct object, so that's called an object infinitive. Okay, the last thing that I want to talk about today, and then those of you who want to take the quiz can take the quiz, and those of you who don't want to can get started on the homework, is the dative of the possessor. Now, when you hear dative of the possessor, you ought to say, wait a minute, I thought the blank case was used for possession.
Genitive.
The genitive case is used for possession. But the dative case can also be used for possession. It's used when you have a word in the dative case and a form of the verb to be. Now, we all know the forms of the verb to be, especially those of us who are going to take the quiz in a minute. The present tense is sum, est, sumus, estis, sunt. The imperfect is eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratus, erant. And the future is ero, erist, erit, erimus, eritus, erant. Okay? And so if you have one of those forms and a dative case, you might have the dative of possession. So if you look at our first example, domino est liber, domino is dative. To or for the master is a book. Okay, well, that means the master has a book. So if you wanted to translate it as the master has a book, you could, but you would have to know that domino is dative of possession. The next example, erat feminis concilium. There was for the women a plan. Well, who has the plan? The women do. So that's why it's dative of possession, because it's showing who has it. Now, if you look on page 39, you'll see 3 different ways that you could say possession. The first one is using the verb habeo, and it's just exactly what you would expect. Dominus librum habet. The master, subject, habet, verb, has, librum, book, direct object. Okay, so that's one way you can say that the master has a book. Another way is using the dative of possession. Domino est liber. For the master, there is a book. The last way is using the genitive case. Liber est domini. The book is the master's. And all of those are perfectly fine ways to show possession in Latin. Okay, over the next few days, we're going to be looking a lot at translating Latin sentences. And you're going to get started on this